There is no more heartbreaking, unsolved mystery than the murder of a small child, so consider yourself warned because the story you're about to hear is particularly tragic. Little Nevaeh was born to 20-year-old Nevaeh Buchanan on February 3, 2004. Her father was Shane Inahosa, but he made a quick exit as soon as he found out about the pregnancy. The father figure in the family was Jennifer's brother Michael, and by all accounts, they had a good relationship. It was suspected that Jennifer had problems with drugs and alcohol, but now she had a delightful baby with an unusual name, chosen because it was heaven spelled backwards. Her little girl was a pure slice of paradise. However, the conditions in which Nevaeh grew up were far from heavenly. Motherhood didn't change Jennifer's habits and lifestyle, and her problems with alcohol persisted. In August 2006, the police raided her house and arrested her for breaking and entering. As a result, she spent almost a year in prison. That's when Jennifer's mother, Sherry, became Nevaeh's official guardian, and she continued living with her daughter and granddaughter in a small 2-room apartment after Jennifer's release. Nevaeh adored her grandmother and even started calling her mom. A free woman, Jennifer vowed to put her life back together and not let her bad habits get between her and Nevaeh. However, their troubles were far from over, and as a convict, Jennifer couldn't find a job, so Grandma Sherry took it upon herself to provide for the family. In any case, Nevaeh remained blissfully unaware of their precarious situation. A mischievous child, she loved SpongeBob SquarePants, and her most cherished stuffed animal, a beagle she named Harley after her favorite motorcycle. She could recognize their loud engines from a mile away. This 5-year-old girl dreamed that someday she would trade in her scooter and hit the road on a real hog. She grew up bald and puckish, but cautious, and her spontaneous spirit could melt the most hardened heart. Nevaeh was distrustful in general and shy around strangers, and she never drew attention to herself. However, she was a lively girl with dark eyes and a stunning smile that could light up an entire room. Nevaeh adored her mother and especially her grandmother. Sherry said they were always hugging and telling each other how much they loved each other. She wanted to be a dentist when she grew up. Nevaeh lived with her mother and grandmother in Charlotte Arms apartments in the city of Monroe, just south of Detroit and not far from Lake Erie. Her home bordered the playground of an elementary and high school. Nevaeh quickly made her first friends, including 8-year-old Austin Baker. She spent her free time with him and the other kids at the playground, and her mother would keep tabs on them from her window. It was May 24, 2009, the Sunday before Memorial Day, a holiday dedicated to military personnel who fought and died while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. All schools and government agencies would be closed on Monday, so after spending the whole day with her mother, at around 6 p.m., 5-year-old Nevaeh changed her clothes, took a popsicle from the freezer, and asked if she could visit Austin, who lived in the apartment above them. Jennifer said she could, but Nevaeh did not stay at Austin's. Instead, she stopped in his place and then went straight outside to play and ride her scooter. She was last seen at around 6:30 p.m., riding in the parking lot. Whether or not she was alone or with other kids is an important question, because some witnesses claimed that she was riding with other kids, but they were never identified. This may have been done to protect witnesses. Thinking that Nevaeh had been at her friend's this whole time, Jennifer became worried only about 8 p.m. when it started getting dark. That's when a girl described as a good friend's daughter knocked on the door and said that Nevaeh was actually riding her scooter in the parking lot. Jennifer was surprised. She had strictly forbidden her daughter to leave the apartment complex. Dropping everything and running outside, she found only her daughter's green and purple scooter abandoned on the pavement. She began frantically searching for Nevaeh, asking neighbors if they had seen anything or knew where she was, but the little girl was nowhere to be found. When word spread, all of her neighbors joined the search, and within 45 minutes they had gone floor by floor and scoured the grounds. After finding nothing, she contacted the police, and an extensive search was launched involving officers and volunteers. Later, search dogs and even helicopters joined in. On the night Nevaeh disappeared, the search party revealed no clues about her fate. The next day, officers began interviewing neighbors, but there were surprisingly few witnesses in this densely populated apartment complex. One man named Tim Finley reported leaving at around 7 p.m. to visit his sister, and by that time, Nevaeh had already abandoned her scooter. But he noticed a small red car speeding out of the parking lot. By noon on the 26th, the Michigan State Police put out an Amber Alert for missing children. Information about the child was faxed to radio stations and television channels, and alerts were sent out to people's cell phones. The day she disappeared, Nevaeh was wearing a light blue, red and white horizontally striped V-neck sleeveless blouse, blue denim shirts, and no shoes. After receiving notifications on their phones, hundreds of locals gathered in the parking lot of a local Kmart to comb Monroe County. Leaflets with a photo and information about the girl flooded the city. Residents reached out online to organize more searches and help out the family. Nobody could ignore it. Everyone thought they were safe in their small town. They let their kids play outside alone. On May 27th, divers searched 2 quarries. Nevaeh Buchanan herself was taken to the police department, interrogated for 2 hours, and given a polygraph test. The only thing that was clear was that she was in shock. Police officers stopped and searched any vehicle entering or leaving the apartment complex from Sunday evening to Tuesday. Meanwhile, Nevaeh's grandmother publicly urged whoever was responsible to return the girl home safe and sound. She recalled that she had gone outside several times that day, looking and checking on the girl, and the windows in the apartment had been open. If Nevaeh had screamed, according to her, Jennifer would have definitely heard her. As time passed, the investigation went nowhere. By May 28th, the police had almost 500 tips from witnesses and concerned citizens. About 240 people were interviewed as part of the investigation, which involved about 100 federal and local police officers. Even Nevaeh's father, Shane Hinojosa, who lived in Toledo, Ohio, went to Monroe. He told the Associated Press that he did so even though he was facing arrest for not paying child support. The whole family was united by grief, and everyone put their disagreements behind them in order to help find Nevaeh. "I am here to find my little girl, dead or alive," Shane said. Were there any suspects? Of course there were. While the search for Nevaeh was underway, 2 arrests were made on the afternoon of May 25th. Jennifer's friends, George Kennedy, aged 39, and Roy Lee Smith, aged 48, were taken into the police station. George Kennedy was no Boy Scout. In 1998, he was charged with raping a 15-year-old girl at a gas station after plying her with marijuana, which he had also been caught smoking. In 2001, he was charged and convicted for home invasion and accosting children. However, despite his depraved criminal history, he had an affair with Jennifer. Nevaeh called him Daddy George, and he often brought her toys and other gifts. Jennifer said that she knew he was an ex-con. They had met at the police station while she was checking in with her probation officer, although she claims to have found out what he had been convicted for only a couple of months later, after she had gotten to know him and felt that he was an okay guy. She stayed in contact with him because she believed that everyone deserves a second chance. Although she was careful around him and never left him alone with her daughter, she added that she felt George was a responsible person. However, in an interview right after the disappearance of her daughter, Jennifer said that she wouldn't put it past him, although she wouldn't put it past anyone. These words would be repeated by reporters quite a few times. The other suspect was no better. Roy Lee Smith had been charged twice with assaulting women and served 15 years for numerous allegations of sexual abuse. However, his mother claimed his girlfriend, who was 24 years old, had falsely accused him of rape. Both suspects were on the sex offender registry and both knew the family of the missing girl. The testimony of two children aged 5 and 8 added fuel to the fire. They claimed that Nevaeh went into the forest, as they called a small copse of trees near the apartment building, to meet with Daddy George. Another child said she had been kidnapped by a bad man and stabbed to death. These statements were used to obtain a search warrant for Kennedy's home, and the police got the go-ahead to investigate room 7 of the motel where Kennedy was living, which was next door to Charlotte Arms. However, a search of his room yielded no clues and no evidence linking him to Nevaeh's disappearance. There were traces of blood on the sink, but it didn't match Nevaeh's DNA. Photographs of a girl that looked like her were also found, but again, this did not lead to anything. They also found 3 toy motorcycles with which he could have lured her back to his room, but where was the proof? The warrant also covered his car, where they found human blood, but it wasn't Nevaeh's. There were no more leads. Smith's residence was searched too, of course. His mother Donna said he had sold his van to George Kennedy about a week and a half before and received a Ford Thunderbird in return. There was no physical evidence or leads to support the theory that Kennedy and/or Smith were involved in the girl's disappearance. In the end, they were removed from the list of suspects, but that didn't keep them out of prison. By June 2009, they were back behind bars for violating parole. On May 31st, 64-year-old James Easter, a former steel mill worker, was taken in for questioning. Neighbors had seen him visiting Charlotte Arms, and he was later seen in his backyard in front of a fire, apparently burning something. He had tons of lewd material on his computer, and he had been accused of indecent exposure. His home was also searched. They found blood in the bathroom and on a blanket, but DNA testing did not confirm any similarity with Nevaeh's samples. This was another dead end. Almost a week had passed since her disappearance. Where could she be? Was she alive? Who was responsible? The whole city was on edge, waiting for updates, but by May 29th, the number of calls to the police had increased to 700. Hundreds of people took part in candlelight vigils in the courtyard of her apartment complex. By June, the police were receiving far fewer tips. Everyone who had something to tell them had already done so, and nothing new came in. Any hope for a happy ending was long gone. Even the FBI, which handles missing children cases, warned the public that it could take years to solve, effectively admitting their own helplessness. They also mentioned that they were searching for 2 minivans, one green and one silver, that had been seen in the Hollywood Elementary School playground. An ice cream truck driver was also questioned, and the investigators held another press conference, but there was nothing new to say. Leaflets with information about the missing girl were distributed out of state as well. The entire country was looking for Nevaeh. The FBI announced a $20,000 reward for any information on the case, and an additional $8,000 was added on top of that by a private citizen. Sooner or later, something had to happen. On June 4th, 2009, Guy Bickley and his son Ryan had plans to go fishing on Lake Erie, but a strong wind forced them to choose another spot, so they went to the River Raisin instead. After setting up their rods, they sat in folding chairs and waited, soon noticing a terrible smell. This often happens on the banks of rivers. A dead fish gets stuck in bushes or branches, or a sick animal falls into the water and gets entangled in algae. But this was something else. When they couldn't stand it any longer, Guy decided to find the source of the smell. Noticing a large swarm of flies below him, he realized that it was coming directly from under the concrete slab he had been resting his feet on the entire time. He stood up and put his weight on it, and it cracked. Another kick with his boot, and the crack became larger. A thin layer of concrete broke inward, and he could make out a back in the crevice. It was a child. Little Nevaeh was finally found in a small grave on the bank of the River Raisin near the township of Raisinville after being missing for 10 days, just about 11 kilometers from her home. The fisherman immediately called the police. Officers rushed to the scene and examined the shore. The cement pit was about a meter from the river, and the first thing they noticed was that the mortar had not been mixed properly. It crumbled apart easily. This had caused the body to float as it began to harden. Now, under moss and dirt and covered by a thin layer of brittle cement, Nevaeh's face was frozen in place, wearing the same clothes she had worn that fateful day. Investigators found strands of her hair in the mud above the concrete and a can of beer from the city of Monroe nearby. Her family was beyond heartbroken when they heard the news. An autopsy was performed at the Wayne County Medical Examiner's office in Detroit. On the morning of June 5th, law enforcement agencies held a press conference aired live on local TV to inform the public and media that the search for the missing girl was over. Crowds gathered for a prayer service near the river where she was found. There was an outpouring of sympathy and compassion from the whole city, and thanks to the internet, around the country. On June 6th, Monroe News quoted Sheriff Tillman Crutchfield as saying the perpetrator was likely a local resident. Deborah Saul wrote about the community's reaction in her weekly column. By that time, there had been about 1,000 leads. And then on June 8th, just about 4 days after Nevaeh was found, Nevaeh Buchanan was interviewed by Nancy Grace on CNN. Nancy was tough on her, in large part because she, like many, felt that Nevaeh was to blame for her child's death. Either she was somehow involved, or she was simply a neglectful mother. When asked about the last time she saw her daughter, Nevaeh altered her original story. First, she said that her daughter simply asked for permission to go visit a friend and then left. Then, in the course of the interview, she claimed to have personally watched the girl go upstairs and enter her friend's apartment. So did she see where her daughter went? Why didn't she follow her? Nevaeh stammered, either from being overcome by emotions or realizing the inconsistency of her story. Nevaeh's father had also put forward suspicions that Nevaeh knew more about what happened than she was letting on. Nancy asked what Nevaeh was doing when she thought Nevaeh was at the neighbors. Nevaeh said she was cooking dinner, because even when her daughter said she wasn't hungry at the moment, she would have to eat something. For some reason, she added, "There's a lot of times she told me no, but she lies." Nancy latched onto that. "Did you just say your little girl lies?" Of course, at that age, children prefer popsicles to a warm meal, but the phrase "she lies" stuck out. That's when Nancy took the gloves off, directly accusing Nevaeh of having a relationship with an ex-con who had gone to prison for abuse. killing children. Jennifer defended him and her friend chimed in. The interview itself was a questionable idea for lots of reasons. Is it really ethical to interrogate a mother who had lost a child like that? Why was Jennifer acting so odd, detached, and making excuses when, if anything, she should be the one demanding answers from detectives and investigators? Why hadn't they caught anyone yet? And still, the question of how much she knew remained unanswered. The local newspaper organized a fundraiser for the memorial service, which began on June 11th and lasted 2 days. Nearly 1,500 people attended, and 700 attended the funeral itself. Nevaeh was seen off on a motorcycle hearse. People lined the streets and released balloons in her honor. She was buried in St. Joseph's Cemetery. By June 15th, Nevaeh's case was no longer front-page news for a banal but at the same time tragic reason. There was no new information. Readers had to rely on intermittent updates. Everyone wanted to know who the girl's mother suspected and whether she was hiding something. So on June 20th, Jennifer Buchanan again denied her involvement in her daughter's disappearance in an interview with Monroe News. She also complained about the dismissive attitude of her fellow citizens and the accusations she herself faced in the death of her daughter. On July 14th, the results of the autopsy were revealed, and they were unexpected. The burial and entombing in concrete apparently happened while Nevaeh was still breathing. A medical examination revealed the presence of soil and dirt in her airways. Upon learning of this, family members expressed hope that she had been unconscious and did not spend her last moments suffering. Police never said whether there was evidence of sexual assault, but the fact that Smith and Kennedy were not considered suspects after the discovery of Nevaeh's body indicates that there was not. And then, silence. The investigation stalled for more than 3 years. By August 2009, there were practically no more tips to the police, and Nevaeh's case went from a national story to a local tragedy. To keep Nevaeh's memory alive, on August 25, 2009, the Justice for Nevaeh Committee announced a fundraiser for a plaque in her honor to be installed at the Riverside Early Development Center in June 2010. In an interview with Monroe News, members of the girl's family said that they were disappointed at the lack of progress in the investigation and asked the killer to turn themselves in. But of course, that didn't happen. In an interview with Local 4 in 2012, Jennifer Buchanan said she still gets accused of her daughter's death. She added that she had not spoken to the police for almost 2 years. The family thinks about their baby all the time, and Grandma Sherry's life never went back to normal. A small monument was put up by the river on the piece of concrete under which Nevaeh had been buried. In May of 2014, the police said that they had a new prime suspect that had not been announced in the early days of the investigation, and while they had very good reasons for believing he was guilty, there was no evidence to charge him, and his name was never released. According to Monroe News, the suspect is about 35 years old and was born and raised in Monroe. By this time, he was serving a 10-year sentence for domestic violence. According to court records, he was a troubled child from a dysfunctional family who had been repeatedly suspended from school and eventually expelled. According to the police, he acted impulsively without any plan. He just saw an opportunity and took it. The suspect was interviewed in detail by the police while in custody, but refused to confess. Then he was charged for the attempted murder of his cellmate. And that is all that is known about him. By 2016, he was no longer brought up. His fate, where he is, why he was not charged, remains unknown. Retired Sheriff Tillman Crutchfield, who oversaw the investigation, admitted that the police had almost made an arrest a long time ago, but couldn't gather enough hard evidence to obtain a warrant and proceed with a trial. At the same time, he denied that Nevaeh's mother had any involvement. This was at least some relief. Jennifer is not to blame. What about the other suspects? George Kennedy, who was in a relationship with Nevaeh's mother, was released on February 1st, 2014. Roy Lee Smith was sentenced to be released in 2035. But he's already out on parole. Now both are free men. 5 years after Nevaeh was discovered, Monroe News columnist Tom Treese said that Guy Bakley still tends to the side by the river in memory of the girl. It still hurts that it was his fate to discover her body, and when asked to comment, he couldn't hold back his tears. He said that he still wakes up at night crying, and he suffers from the thought that he put his feet on the concrete slab on top of Nevaeh. He also says no one fishes there anymore. The girl's family still lives in Monroe, but they have moved out of Charlotte Arms. On the 7th anniversary of the girl's death, Nevaeh's paternal grandmother, Carla Nash, who's no longer alive, said that she thought Nevaeh knew the man who kidnapped her. Sherry Buchanan, who has also likely passed away, kept some mementos of her granddaughter, like an old Motorola phone. Nevaeh's mother never appears in public. In an interview in 2012, she asked that her face not be shown. Now she works at a factory and is still trying to cope with what happened. In spring of 2020, a video was uploaded on the Paranormal Nightmare TV series YouTube channel. A group of men visited the crime scene 11 years later and, using something called a ghost box, asked the alleged spirit of little Nevaeh who killed her. The answer: someone named Paul Miller or George, and it was someone her mother knew. Watch it for yourself, but I for one am skeptical. A ghost box supposedly catches snippets of phrases in the white noise that represent what otherworldly spirits are trying to communicate, and the hosts relayed what her ghost allegedly said with subtitles, but it sounded like something completely different in the audio to me. They also went with Guy, the fisherman, to the spot where he found her, and he recalled how it all happened. The theory that a single person couldn't have done it alone was also floated. On the other hand, detectives said that it was a spontaneous crime committed in a fit of emotion. What about you? Do you have any ideas? How can it be so hard to solve a case like this in the 21st century when there are CCTV cameras everywhere with all the latest advancements in DNA analysis, when anyone can be easily tracked by the geolocation of their phone? It's a crime that should not have happened at all. Children are always playing outside, with their mothers watching after them from the windows, so there is no point in blaming Jennifer. It could have been any child. Kids should always feel safe playing in the yard. It's easy to say it was all her mother's fault, if only to fool yourself into thinking that it would never have happened to you. Of course, a 5-year-old should never be allowed to stray far from home, but all the kids there played outside. Get ready for some controversy in the comments. Like and share this video with your friends, and get in on the discussion. As always, stay safe.